I never thought I'd be the one telling a story like this. I let my best friend move in when she lost her job, thinking I was helping her out. But what I didn't know was that she was plotting to destroy everything I had: my marriage, my trust, and my family. I found out the truth in a way that shook me to my core, and it all started with a single message. I never imagined it would come to this. My name is Olivia Summers. I'm in my early 30s, happily married to my husband, Ryan, with a beautiful daughter, Isabel. I thought I had it all: a loving family, a peaceful home. It felt like nothing could go wrong. But as anyone will tell you, life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. It all started when my best friend, Sophia, lost her job. She was struggling, and of course, I wanted to help. We've been friends for years, and I couldn't imagine turning her away. So, when she asked if she could stay with us for a while, I didn't hesitate. After all, what are friends for, right? Sophia had always been there for me through the good times and the bad. But this time, I didn't realize she had an agenda. Ryan wasn't thrilled about Sophia moving in. I could tell he was uncomfortable, but he didn't say much. He was always the easygoing type, the kind of guy who avoided confrontation. I assumed it was just the stress of having an extra person in the house. But I kept reassuring him, telling him that Sophia would get back on her feet soon. "She'll be fine, Ryan. Just give her some time," I said, trying to ease his concerns. He smiled, but I saw that flicker of doubt in his eyes. I brushed it off. He always did that, kept things to himself. But what I didn't know, what none of us knew, was that things were about to change in ways I couldn't control. Now, I'm not saying that this story is about me playing the victim. It's about understanding how easily someone can slip into a situation they never saw coming. I wanted to believe everything would be fine. I wanted to believe that I could help my friend without it tearing my life apart. But sometimes, the people you trust the most are the ones who can hurt you the deepest. If you're enjoying this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Now, let's get back to how everything changed. When Sophia first moved in, I did everything I could to make her feel at home. I rearranged the guest room, made sure she had everything she needed, and even encouraged Ryan to be patient with her. After all, we've been through so much together. She's my best friend, and I couldn't turn my back on her when she needed help. At first, everything seemed fine. Sophia was grateful, and Ryan, though a bit hesitant, went along with it. The tension was subtle at first, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. But as days turned into weeks, I started noticing small things. Sophia's behavior around Ryan began to change. It started innocently enough, little comments here and there, a lingering touch on his arm, a compliment that lasted just a little too long. At first, I thought I was overthinking it. After all, I was just trying to balance being a good wife, a good mother, and a good friend. I couldn't possibly be imagining this. But deep down, something didn't feel right. There were nights when I would look across the dinner table and catch Ryan's eyes drifting toward Sophia just for a moment, but it was enough to make my heart race. It wasn't the look of admiration a friend might give another friend. It was something else, something that made me feel uncomfortable, and it stuck with me long after the moment passed. I started to question myself, wondering if I was just being paranoid. Maybe I was too focused on keeping my family together, too eager to ignore any sign that might threaten the illusion of normalcy we'd built. But it wasn't just the way they looked at each other. It was the way they started spending more time together, long conversations after dinner, when Ryan and I would usually wind down, the laughter that seemed too easy, too close. And then there was the way Sophia seemed to always find reasons to be near him, whether it was in the kitchen or sitting next to him on the couch when I was in another room. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was happening. The tipping point came one afternoon when I came home early from running errands. I was supposed to pick Isabel up from school, but I had some extra time, so I decided to surprise Ryan and Sophia. I didn't think much of it, just a simple, happy surprise until I walked in on them. They were sitting on the couch, side by side, their faces too close for comfort, talking in hushed tones. Ryan was laughing at something Sophia said, but when I entered, the laughter stopped and the room fell silent. For a split second, I stood there, frozen, my heart pounding in my chest. I wanted to say something, to call them out, but no words came. I just stood there, feeling my stomach twist into knots. Ryan was the first to break the silence. "Hey, Liv, what's up?" he asked, his voice unnervingly casual. I tried to smile, but the pain was evident in my eyes. I didn't know how to handle what I was seeing. It felt like I was watching the unraveling of something I had worked so hard to build. "Nothing," I said, forcing the words out. "I just got home early. Isabel's with my mom, so I thought I'd surprise you two." Sophia quickly stood up, almost too quickly, and started fussing with her hair. "I'm sorry, Liv. Didn't mean to make you feel awkward," she said, her tone a little too sweet, a little too rehearsed. But I wasn't stupid. I knew something was going on between them. I could feel it in my bones. The trust I had for both of them was slipping away faster than I could catch it. The days that followed were the hardest. I couldn't look at Ryan without feeling betrayed, and Sophia's presence in the house, once a comfort, now felt like a weight on my chest. I didn't want to confront either of them, not yet. I didn't know what I was hoping for, maybe that they'd just stop, that everything would go back to normal. But that wasn't going to happen. I tried to talk to Ryan. Late at night, when Isabel was asleep, I confronted him, my voice shaking with a mix of anger and fear. "Ryan, I need you to tell me the truth," I said. "I see the way you look at Sophia. I hear the way she talks to you. Please don't lie to me." Ryan's face went pale, but he quickly recovered, a forced smile creeping onto his lips. "Liv, you're overthinking this. She's just going through a tough time, and I'm just being a friend." But I knew it was more than that. I had seen it, felt it. It wasn't just friendship. There was something deeper, something that had been building for weeks, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. But I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to accept the possibility that the man I loved was capable of betraying me in the worst way. I didn't want to destroy my family. I didn't want to tear Isabel's world apart. But what was I supposed to do? How could I stand by and let this continue? I tried to explain to Ryan that Sophia was dangerous. She had a history of breaking hearts and destroying marriages. But Ryan wouldn't hear it. He kept insisting that I was overreacting, that he was just being kind to someone who needed help. But deep down, I knew the truth, and it was eating me alive. It felt like I was holding my breath for days, waiting for the right moment to confront Ryan and Sophia. The more I tried to ignore the growing tension, the more suffocating it became. Each day felt like walking on eggshells. I tried to keep up the illusion of normalcy for Isabel's sake, but inside, I was unraveling. Ryan and Sophia's closeness, however subtle it seemed, gnawed at me, and the truth I had been avoiding kept clawing its way to the surface. Sophia's presence in our home had shifted from something I saw as a charitable act to something that filled me with dread. I had given her a roof over her head, welcomed her into my family, but the lines were getting blurred. The lingering touches, the way Sophia seemed to gravitate toward Ryan whenever I wasn't around. It wasn't just innocent. It was intentional. I could feel it in the way she looked at him, the way she made him laugh with that flirtatious glint in her eye, as if she was trying to seduce him without saying a word. She wasn't hiding it anymore, and neither was he. But it wasn't until that Sunday afternoon, when Ryan had gone out to run a few errands, that the truth finally hit me in the face. I was sitting on the couch, trying to distract myself by watching a movie with Isabel, when I heard the sound of the front door opening. I expected Ryan to walk in, but instead, it was Sophia. She came into the living room, looking flustered, almost as if she had been caught off guard. I had never seen her like this before. "Hey, Olivia," she said, her voice a little too bright. "I thought I'd surprise you. I brought some coffee from your favorite cafe. Thought you could use a pick-me-up." I forced a smile. "That's sweet of you, Sophia, but I'm good. Thanks." She set the coffee on the counter and then sat down next to me. I could tell something was off, and I wasn't in the mood to pretend anymore. I couldn't ignore it any longer. The image of Ryan and Sophia, sitting so close, sharing private moments, replayed in my mind. I was done being passive. It was time to face the truth, no matter how much it hurt. "Sophia, we need to talk," I said, my voice low but firm. "I know what's been going on between you and Ryan." She froze, her eyes widening slightly before she quickly recovered. "What do you mean?" she asked, feigning innocence. But I could see it in her eyes. She knew exactly what I meant. I'm not stupid, Sophia, I said, trying to hold my composure. I see the way you two have been acting around each other, the way you look at him, the way you touch him. I know about the texts. I know what's been happening behind my back. The words were out there now, and there was no going back. I could feel my heart racing, but I wasn't going to back down. I had already let this go on too long. I had tried to pretend that everything was fine, that it was all in my head, but I couldn't live in denial anymore. Sophia didn't respond right away. Instead, she shifted uncomfortably on the couch, avoiding my gaze. The silence between us was thick, and for a brief moment, I thought she might apologize, or at least try to explain herself. But no. Instead, she spoke, her voice cold and calculated. I never meant for this to happen, Olivia, she said, finally meeting my eyes. I never wanted to hurt you, but Ryan, he's different. He makes me feel things I've never felt before. And honestly, I'm not the one to blame here. I blinked in disbelief. What? You're blaming him now? You're the one who has been playing with my marriage, with my life, and you're telling me you're not to blame? Sophia shook her head, but there was no remorse in her eyes. I'm not blaming anyone, but Ryan was the one who made the first move. He knew what he was doing, and he wanted it just as much as I did. My stomach twisted into knots. I felt the betrayal like a physical ache in my chest. For the first time, I realized that this wasn't just a one-time mistake. This wasn't something that could be swept under the rug or fixed with a simple apology. This was deep, intentional, and it was ruining everything I had worked for. I took a deep breath and steadied myself. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I trusted you, I said, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and hurt. I opened my home to you. I brought you into my family, and you repay me by tearing my life apart. What kind of friend does that? Sophia opened her mouth, but before she could speak, I cut her off. I don't want to hear your excuses anymore. You've crossed a line, and I can't stand by and watch you destroy everything I love. She looked at me for a long moment, her expression unreadable, before she finally stood up. You don't get it, Olivia. You never did. Ryan and I stood up too, cutting her off. No, Sophia, you're done. You need to leave. Now. She froze, as if the idea of being thrown out hadn't occurred to her, but I wasn't backing down. Get your things and leave my house, I said, my voice firm. I won't have you in my life anymore. You've shown me exactly who you are. She didn't say anything else. She simply turned and walked away, and I couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of relief. At least this part of the nightmare was over. But what I didn't know at the time was that the hardest part was yet to come. When Ryan came home later that afternoon, I didn't wait for him to ask how my day had gone. I confronted him immediately, the weight of the truth crashing down on me. I told him everything I knew, everything that had happened, and how I had finally confronted Sophia. But I didn't stop there. I knew how Ryan could be, how easy it was for him to be manipulated. I had to make him understand the gravity of the situation, and that meant planting seeds of doubt in his mind about Sophia's true nature. I told him about Sophia's past, about how she had destroyed other marriages before, about how she used people for her own gain. Ryan, she's done this before, I said, trying to sound convincing. She's destroyed families, and now she's doing the same thing to us. She's using you, just like she used other men. Don't let her do this to you too. Ryan's face changed as he processed my words. The guilt in his eyes told me that he believed me. He had to. I needed him to. But I didn't realize just how far I had pushed him. His confusion turned into rage, and I saw something shift in him that I hadn't seen before. He stormed out of the room without saying another word, and I had no idea that my manipulation, my attempt to save my marriage, would set off a tragic chain of events. The days following my confrontation with Sophia were some of the longest of my life. As much as I tried to convince myself that everything would be okay, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had crossed a line. I had done everything I could to salvage my marriage and protect my family, but deep down, I knew that what I had done manipulating Ryan, planting doubts in his mind, wasn't the answer. I thought I was doing the right thing, But the more I replayed the conversation in my head, the more I realized how deeply I had influenced him, how deeply I had manipulated him. The thought of it made my stomach churn, but there was no turning back now. I had tried to do what I thought was best, but what happened next was beyond anything I could have prepared for. Ryan left that night. He didn't say much, just a rushed goodbye and a promise to fix things. I assumed he was going to talk to Sophia, perhaps to demand answers or even apologize for what had happened. I hoped, naively, that he would come to his senses, realize that his marriage was worth fighting for, and that Sophia would finally leave us alone. But I couldn't have been more wrong. When Ryan came home the next day, he looked different. His face was pale, his eyes red from lack of sleep. I could tell something had changed. But when he spoke, his words were nothing like what I had expected. "I saw her, Liv," he said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. "I saw Sophia, and she told me everything. She said you knew, that you were the one who knew all along, and that you'd been manipulating me." I froze. "What? That's not true. I didn't—" But Ryan wasn't listening anymore. He was shaking with anger, his hands clenched into fists. He was completely overwhelmed by everything that had happened. The guilt and confusion from his own actions, combined with the weight of what I had told him, were too much for him to process. "I can't do this anymore," he said, his voice trembling. "I trusted you, Liv. You used me. You made me think that she was the enemy. You told me things about her, things that weren't true. And now she's dead. She's dead because of what you said to me. I never meant for this to happen." I felt my knees go weak, and I had to steady myself against the wall. "What are you talking about, Ryan?" I asked, panic rising in my chest. "What happened? What do you mean she's dead?" Ryan didn't answer. Instead, he turned, walking away from me without another word. I was left in the living room, my heart racing as I tried to make sense of what he had just said. Dead? Sophia? I rushed to the door, my mind reeling. I knew I had pushed him too far, but I never imagined it would lead to something like this. My thoughts were spinning, but I had to know what had happened. I grabbed my phone, dialing Ryan's number, but the call went straight to voicemail. I couldn't reach him, and the panic only grew stronger. I needed to find out what had really happened, what Ryan had done. An hour later, the doorbell rang. It was the police. They didn't need to say much. The look on their faces told me everything I needed to know. Ryan had been involved in an altercation with Sophia, and in the heat of the moment, driven by anger, guilt, and the twisted emotions I had planted in his mind, he had killed her. I was stunned, my body frozen in place as the officers explained the details. Ryan had gone to confront Sophia, to accuse her of destroying his life, just as I had suggested. But things had escalated quickly. Words were exchanged, accusations thrown. In the chaos, Ryan had lost control. He had struck Sophia, and it was enough to end her life. I felt the world tilt beneath me. I never wanted this. I never thought it would go this far. I had manipulated Ryan to get him to see Sophia for what I believed she was. I had made him feel guilty, made him question everything. And now, because of my words, someone was dead. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell the officers that it wasn't Ryan's fault, that I was the one who had pushed him, that I had planted the seed of doubt. But I couldn't. There was no way to undo what had been done. There was no way to take back the pain I had caused. Ryan was arrested, taken away in handcuffs as I stood there, watching helplessly. I couldn't move. I was numb, consumed by guilt and regret. The man I had once loved was now a prisoner, and I was the one who had pushed him into it. I went to the police station later that evening, hoping against hope that I could explain everything, that I could somehow take the blame. But Ryan wouldn't speak to me. His eyes were full of rage, full of confusion. He didn't understand why I had done what I had done. "Liv, I didn't want this," he said, his voice breaking. "I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want to hurt anyone. But you made me believe it was all her fault. You made me believe that if I just got rid of her, everything would be okay." I wanted to apologize, to tell him how sorry I was, but the words didn't come. All I could do was stand there, watching him spiral deeper into guilt and despair. That night, I sat in my car, staring at the house I had once thought of as my home. It felt empty, like everything I had worked for, everything I had believed in, had been shattered beyond repair. I had destroyed my family. I had destroyed myself. I never meant for it to end this way. I never thought my attempts to protect my family would result in such a tragic and irreversible outcome. But here I was, facing the consequences of my actions. As I sat there, I realized something. If I had only let go earlier, if I had made the hard choice to walk away from the toxicity of my marriage, none of this would have happened. If I had been strong enough to trust my instincts and leave, I could have saved myself, saved my daughter, and saved Ryan from the guilt he would now have to carry for the rest of his life. I never imagined it would come to this. I never thought that trying to protect my family, trying to preserve the marriage that I thought was worth saving, would lead to such a tragic outcome. As the days passed, I found myself trapped in a whirlwind of guilt and regret. Ryan was in jail, Sophia was gone, and I was left to pick up the pieces of a life that had shattered beyond recognition. The first few days after the incident felt like a blur. The weight of everything that had happened crushed me, and I couldn't seem to escape the overwhelming grief that had consumed my every thought. I kept replaying the events over and over in my mind, how I had pushed Ryan to confront Sophia, how I had planted the seeds of doubt, how I had manipulated him into thinking Sophia was the one to blame. I had thought that by controlling the narrative, I could save my family, but in reality, I had set everything in motion for its destruction. Ryan's trial was a whirlwind of emotions. I watched from the sidelines as he was tried for Sophia's murder, knowing deep down that he had never meant for any of it to happen. But in his heart, he was guilty of listening to me, guilty of letting his anger and confusion take control. He had acted in a fit of rage, pushed by everything I had told him, and now he had to live with the consequences. It broke me to watch him face the consequences of my actions. He never deserved this. The truth was, Ryan had never been the man I thought he was. I had built him up in my mind as the perfect husband, the perfect father. I had idealized him, believing that love could overcome anything. But love couldn't fix this. Love couldn't erase the damage that had been done. I had been so consumed with protecting my family, so desperate to keep it intact, that I failed to see the cracks that had already formed in our marriage. Ryan had betrayed me once, and I had been too afraid to acknowledge it, too afraid to face the truth. I had ignored the warning signs, and in doing so, I had allowed him to betray me again, this time in a way that was far more devastating. Sophia was gone, but the damage she had done lived on. I had tried to save her from herself, tried to protect her from making the same mistakes I had made, but it was too late. She had torn apart my life, and in the end, I had allowed it. I had trusted her, given her a place in my home, in my family, and she had used that trust to destroy everything I had built. And Ryan, he was lost to me now, locked away in a prison of his own making. I would never get back the life we once had. But in the silence of my grief, I came to an undeniable realization. I had spent so much time trying to fix everything, trying to make the pieces of my life fit back together, that I had lost sight of something crucial. I had forgotten about myself. I had been so focused on saving my marriage, on keeping my family together, that I had neglected my own happiness, my own peace. I had allowed myself to be manipulated, not only by Sophia, but by my own fear of being alone. I had spent so many years putting everyone else's needs before my own, thinking that it was the right thing to do. But now, I saw the truth. I couldn't save anyone if I didn't save myself first. And that's where I began my journey to healing. It wasn't easy. It was a painful, messy process, but it was necessary. I filed for divorce shortly after Ryan was sentenced. I couldn't stay in a marriage that had been built on lies and manipulation. I couldn't pretend that things could go back to the way they were. It was time to move on, to rebuild my life without the toxic influences that had shaped it. I had to take control of my future, for Isabel, for myself, and for my own sanity. I sought therapy to help me process the guilt and the heartbreak, and it helped. Slowly, I began to realize that the mistakes I had made didn't define me. I wasn't a villain. I was a person who had been broken, but who was willing to piece herself back together, no matter how long it took. As for Isabel, she was my reason to keep going. I promised her that I would never let her grow up in a broken home, that I would always protect her, no matter what. She was my future, and I would do everything I could to make sure she had a life filled with love, stability, and security. I couldn't change the past, but I could shape the future. The journey of healing wasn't quick, and it wasn't easy, but with each passing day, I grew stronger. I learned to forgive myself for the mistakes I had made, even if that meant accepting the consequences of my actions. And I learned to trust again, not in others, not in the idea of a perfect marriage or a perfect life, but in myself. I trusted myself to make better decisions moving forward, to choose the people who truly deserved a place in my life, and to create a future that was mine. Looking back, I realized that the greatest lesson I had learned was the importance of self-preservation. I had spent so long trying to fix things for others that I had forgotten the most important relationship of all, the one I had with myself. If I had trusted my instincts sooner, if I had listened to the warning signs and walked away before things got so far, maybe things would have turned out differently. But I can't change the past. All I can do is learn from it and move forward. So, to anyone watching this who may be in a toxic relationship, who may be holding on to something that isn't working, let it go. Don't wait for things to get worse. Trust your instincts, and remember that you are worth more than the pain you're tolerating. Choose your friends wisely because they can shape your future. And always, always prioritize your own peace. You deserve it. If you're finding strength in this story, please subscribe to my channel and let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Share your thoughts. Your journey is important too. G.